2 weeks ago, I had the great privilege of spending a Shabbos, a long weekend, together with all my children, almost all my children, in Florida. They came together from 6 different cities, and we were able to celebrate my birthday together. And it was a time of tremendous nachas for me, and it was a very great pleasure, very special moments of my life. And come to think of Yaakov Avinu, before he passes away, he has all his children gather, and he comes to a fascinating realization. See, when Yaakov goes to Lavan's house, and at first he wants to marry Rachel, we have a circumstance that he wants to marry Rachel, but circumstances has it that he marries Leah as well, and Leah becomes kind of the main wife in many ways, although he's always loving Rachel most. But Leah gives him the most children. Leah lives the longest, etc. So the question is, what's going on over here? On the one hand, Yaakov wants one woman, and Hashem creates the circumstance that there's another woman, Leah, there. What is this all about? So the Torah tells us that why did Yaakov want to marry Rachel? Because she was beautiful of form, beautiful of complexion. She's like the only woman that says both these qualities about in the Tanakh. Others are spoken of their beauty, but these two categories, her and her son Yosef. So Rachel is beautiful, but she's not just beautiful physically, she's beautiful spiritually. She's a very special person. We see how she forgoes her marriage to Yaakov, just not to embarrass a sister, gives over, as we mentioned last week, gives over the secret code that she made with Yaakov, so her father could not fool him, to her sister, so her sister shouldn't be embarrassed. And she does it in a unique way. In other words, she doesn't kind of have it in the face of her sister throughout her life saying, hey, you took my husband. She didn't do that. How do we know that? Because last week we read that the son of Leah went into the field and brought some jasmine back, and Rachel says, "Can I have some of them?" And Leah says, "Oh, it's not enough you took my husband, you want the jasmine? What? Who took whose husband?" But Rachel never made it and says, "I'm giving you the secret code." She didn't do that. She said to Leah, when Kala goes into the chuppah, she says to her husband this secret, this word. And so Leah didn't see it as if she kind of usurped Rachel. It's only that Rachel then got married after the 7 days that she was married. She also gets married to Yaakov, and Leah is saying, what's going on here? And sees the focus of Yaakov and Rachel. That's because of how Rachel carried herself. So that tells us the incredible, special quality of who Rachel was. And so that's what Yaakov wanted. He wanted perfection. Why do we love weddings? We love weddings because it is we're drawn to the perfection of it. A wedding is when you see the possibility of perfection, of romance, of love, of two wonderful young people coming together and building a beautiful life together. So there's the hope of what could come out of this marriage. That's why we love it. And Yaakov wanted that perfection, wanted Rachel perfect, his children perfect, a perfect life. Hashem says to him, Yaakov, perfection, I'm perfection. I don't need perfection. What I want to see is imperfect people transforming themselves. So he marries Leah. Who's Leah? Leah, we're told, firstly, is someone who cries. Why is she crying? She's crying when she loses her eyelashes, so she loses that beauty that she would have had. Why she cry? Because she doesn't want to end up with Esau. In other words, she's crying to do something about her negative possibility of her life and saying, no, that's not happening. So Leah is someone who teaches us the idea of struggle and overcoming challenges that might come your way. All kinds. And so we see this also in their children. Rachel has perfect children. Yosef is also as beautiful as his mother, and when he has a test, he doesn't succumb to the test. And Yosef is called also, and Yosef's called the tzaddik. He's the tzaddik. Binyamin, as a matter of fact, is so great that our sages tell us that the only reason Binyamin died is because Adam ate from the tree of knowledge. In other words, only because there's a decree of death, but he was perfect. Leah, on the other hand, had a son, Reuven, who we read about in this week's Torah portion, Reuven, after Rachel passes away, Yaakov's bed ended up in Bilhah's tent, Bilhah being the maidservant for Rachel, and Leah's, and Reuven is indignant. What? This should have gone out to Leah's tent. And he takes the bed into Leah's tent. It was an act of great chutzpah. It showed his anger, and he lost many of his privileges because of it. And then we have Shimon and Levi, who again, this week's Torah portion, we read how they have a temper. They get, after what happened, they go and they kill out our entire city of Shechem because of what happened with Dinah. Yehuda fails with Tamar. He has illicit relations. She thinks she's a lady of the night. And then all of them are involved one way or another with the selling of Joseph in next week. So these all negative characteristics, but yet at the end of the day, they do tshuva. Reuven does tshuva, Yehuda does tshuva. Yehuda, remarkably, is able to say, Tzadka mimeni. He's able, when Tamar was about to be killed, and thereby clear Yehuda, no one would ever find out what happened. He says, no, she's right. This happened for me. And he saved her life, and he became, had this black spot on his name. But nevertheless, we see also that when something would happen to Benjamin, Yehuda stood up to make sure that nothing happens to Benjamin. That Benjamin is that they should not treat Benjamin like they treated Joseph. So we see that the children of Leah have this ability for tshuva, for transforming negative circumstances. So even though they fail, they come back. And this is what Yaakov Avinu sees at the end of his life. He sees around his bed all his children, and half of them are from Leah. And they're not just the half. Leviim and Kohanim come from Leah. Moses and Aaron. King David, Mashiach. The Torah scholars from Yisachar. The supporters of Torah scholars from Zvulun. This is all coming from Leah. And so Yaakov looks around and he sees all his children, half of them coming from Leah, most of the leadership of the Jewish people coming from Leah, and he sees, you know what? Vayishtachu Yisrael Areshamita. He bows down to the head of the bed. One of the commentaries say, who's the head of the bed? The head of the bed is Leah. She's the one who gave him these children. And therefore, fascinating, when Yaakov ultimately tells Yosef where to bury him, he says, bury me in the cave of the patriarchs. That's where I buried Abraham and Sarah. That's where Abraham and Sarah are buried. That's where Yitzchak and Rivka are buried. And that's where I buried Leah. He didn't say, bury me near Rachel, Maras Machpelah, who passed away this week's portion. And we're told that Rachel is buried in Ephrat, in Beit Lechem. Bury me there. No, he says, bury me near Leah. Because at the end of the day, he appreciated the value of what Leah brought to his family. And what this teaches us, and the lesson we should get from this, is how life is not about perfection. Life is about overcoming challenges and not accepting negative circumstances, negative situations, whether it be events or whether it be our own character, and working on ourselves till we transform that. And that indeed is what Yutas Kislev, which is the holiday we're going to be celebrating Monday night, Tuesday, and Wednesday, holiday of the liberation of the Alter Rebbe, which is all about, and he wrote his Tanya, and in his Tanya he teaches us, the magnum opus is Tanya. He wrote a lot, much more, but the Tanya is called the Bible of Chassidus, and in the Tanya he teaches us that the book is not called the book of a tzaddik, book of the righteous, book of the Beinani. It's the in-betweener, it's the average. It is the life of the Beinani is one of struggle, but overcoming struggle, challenge, and how to overcome the challenge, and how to view life through challenges, and how to see yourself in a positive light, even as you are not a perfect person, even as you go through all these challenges. This is what the Alter Rebbe gives us. So come and celebrate with us also on Monday night, whilst we learn these values. Good Shabbos.